Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Stirring the Pot. We are back for a free agency special in this one. A lot of things have been going down in the NFL since the start of the legal tampering period. But we got everybody here, John, Dom, RJ, myself. Before we talk a lot about free agency, strap in. This is probably going to be on the longer side for our episodes. Guys, how we doing?
I feel like we're just waking up from a dream right now. I think yesterday, recording this on Wednesday the 11th, yesterday the 10th, is probably one of the funniest, craziest days I can remember in sports history. Obviously, we had Kobe's record getting broken by Bam Adebayo, of all people, shooting 43 throws. And then Team USA lost in baseball to an Italy squad made up of a bunch of kind of minor leaguers and smaller guys. And then big news in the football world, which we're here to talk about. A certain trade game, Knicks, I'm sure we'll talk about shortly, but just an all-around crazy day. And I feel like I'm waking up from a dream right now because that was just a wild 24 hours of news cycles.
Yeah, just crazy free agency over, this is usually how it is every year, to be honest. Some trades or signings I like, others, I have other opinions about some things, but was a crazy day yesterday, but I'm sure we'll get into that.
Yeah, I tell you what, free agency's been nuts. I mean, it's usually insane every year, tops the other, but we'll talk about it in a second, but what happened last night is unprecedented thing. So it's been a crazy couple days in the NFL.
Yeah, so we're going to start off with probably the biggest one of the lot. Obviously, there was a lot of talk. Max Crosby was traded to the Baltimore Ravens for 2 first-round picks, one of the rare people that gets traded for 2 first-round selections. But then last night, at the dawn, we get a tweet from, I believe it was Schefter who broke the news. Max Crosby trade got rescinded. The Baltimore Ravens declined it because Max Crosby failed a physical.
I think it was the Raiders who broke it themselves with their post saying the Baltimore Ravens have backed out, I think, from what I remember, which is pretty crazy. Usually none of the insiders had that.
I think that he failed it. Yeah, he did fail his physical. But I think that the most, my concern about this is Baltimore is clearly scrambling right now just to try to get as many players as they can to fix the players that they lost in this free agency. They lost quite a few. And, Max Crosby, nobody really knows what the agenda was, what they were trying to do, but it just kind of seems, it definitely stained their reputation, even though it was already, they've done this before. I don't know with who. Connor, you could probably, I think you did research into that yesterday with other players in past years that they've done something like this where they refuse to trade. But I don't know. That's like a really dirty move by Baltimore to do because you send Max Crosby back. I'm sure it'll get settled out. We were just talking about this before we started. But you have to deal with that problem. The Raiders signed a bunch of people, which we'll get into. They paid him all this money. And then all of a sudden Ravens are like, oh, we don't want him anymore. Here, you can have him. Deal with his contract. And now you can't trade him away because other teams are going to want less because they know you're in maybe a bit of a situation with money.
It's a really weird situation for the Raiders. I'll start there first. This can still work if you want to keep Max Crosby and he's open to returning. Trust me, the Cap Wizards will figure it out. But for the Ravens side, Tom Pelissero said this yesterday, and I was kind of researching this. It's a little weird on how everybody has their own team doctors, and they all have their own degrees, blah, blah, blah. That's basically, in summary, what he said, but that also means they can say Baltimore's like, oh, he failed his physical, but they were just not comfortable, and they can say, oh, we need an excuse to not want him anymore. There you go. You can say he failed the physical, trade is rescinded before the league year. It's in about an hour and 20 minutes, and Baltimore gets both their first-round picks back.
Yeah, and a domino fell in the free agency market right after that because of the Crosby trade being rejected by the Ravens before it ended up fully going through. But we'll get through to that when we get to the AFC North. Let's start with the AFC East. Couple pretty big moves in this one, starting with the Bills. They traded for DJ Moore, in which they traded a second-round pick in exchange for the wide receiver and a fifth-round pick back from the Bears. A lot of people have different opinions on that one, but the Bills didn't do a whole lot other than that. A lot of re-signs. Probably the biggest re-sign from them was Connor McGovern, one of their guards. It was a 4-year, $52 million extension, and one of the funny media moments came from that. He gave all the reporters pizza after that when he got re-signed. But what are your guys' thoughts on the DJ Moore trade for the Bills?
unnecessary. A lot of people are saying it's a bit of an overpay because DJ Moore is kind of obviously on the outs. The Bears have a bit of a cap crunch coming up, and they obviously drafted 2 receivers in the recent years in Romo Dunze and Luther Burden, who they're both high on. But I think for the Bills, you kind of had to do it because you just saw, I mentioned this in the last podcast during our mock drafts, that the Bills just had a hodgepodge and sort of random receivers out there in the playoff game. Brandon Cooks, Gabe Davis, guys who just haven't passed their primes for a while now. DJ Moore has been consistent wherever he's gone. He was a big part of that Chicago team last year. I think he can be at the minimum a reliable weapon for Josh Allen and kind of give him a bit of a floor there. They really haven't had since Stephon Diggs left.
My opinion about this, of course, John, I completely agree with you. They needed that one. And DJ Moore is a receiver that can do multiple things. You can use him in several schemes. He's very flexible in the routes that you can give him. Whenever Luther Burden and Rome Odunze, whatever his last name is, I'm sorry. But when he was alone, I think he was alone for a time in Chicago, and that was Justin Fields before they transitioned to Caleb Williams. Then they had that weird year with Tyson Bagent. He did a pretty good job. I remember he put up like 50 fantasy points against Washington that one game. That was a crazy Monday night. But DJ Moore has the capability. He's been good since he's been drafted by the Panthers. And if this is like make it or break it for the Bills. You got your weapon. Josh Allen there's no more excuse of, he doesn't have this, he doesn't have that. It's DJ Moore, James Cook. That's good.
Yeah, I think if you're Buffalo, you get a proven receiver in DJ Moore, and it's somewhat of a one for Josh Allen, something he really hasn't had too often in his career. But if you're also Chicago's side, you get some value for DJ Moore, and you want to go towards those younger receivers in Luther Burden and Rome Odunze. And this is a very receiver-heavy draft class, so you can, in sense, replace him easily, cheaper cost with one of those draft picks, whether that be in the middle of rounds or late rounds. But I think for both sides, they both ultimately got what they wanted, so it's one of the kind of rare win-win moves.
Yeah, I'm a fan of this move. I think DJ Moore is definitely going to offer that kind of offensive output that you need, and you have needed for a long time if you're Buffalo. Josh Allen is going to finally, again, get a weapon. We'll see what he's able to do with it because obviously we know what happened with Stephon Diggs. They didn't end up doing it. But there's a couple other teams in this division that we need to talk about. I'll let John talk about the Jets after we get done with the other two teams. There's 2 big signings and another pretty good signing. One for the Dolphins. Obviously, the Dolphins cut Tua. Yes, you heard that correctly. Tua Tagovailoa got cut by the Dolphins. That was kind of saw that one coming unless he got traded for pocket change. But Malik Willis signed with the Miami Dolphins, a 3-year, $67.5 million deal. He's got $22.5 million signing bonus. This one's going to be interesting to watch because he's only appeared in 6 starts in his NFL career so far. But for the Patriots on the other side, Romeo Doubs signing a 4-year, $70 million contract. Now, a lot of people have their doubts about Romeo Doubs, especially Packer fans, with him going on and off and on and off and on and off. But there's 2 pretty good signings for the Patriots. An AVT, Elijah Vera Tucker, signing a 3-year, $42 million deal, going to a different part of the division from the New York Jets. And a personal favorite of mine, I love me some Reggie Gilliam. He's one of the last true fullbacks in the NFL. I think he's going to work wonders for the Pats. But what are your guys' thoughts on these moves before we obviously get to John's New York Jets?
Yeah, I think Malik Willis for the Dolphins is kind of a connection a lot of people have made throughout the past couple weeks because the Dolphins have a GM from the Packers front office, a head coach from the Packers system in Jeff Hafley, so they kind of made the obvious connection. He's a lottery ticket. He looked good in the 6 games he has started for Green Bay, especially late this year. But that's obviously in a Matt LaFleur, very quarterback-friendly offense, so you have to see how it can perform, especially in kind of a Dolphins team that's been kind of gutted over recent weeks with the cutting of Tyreek Hill. You still got Jalen Waddle there, but it's going to be interesting to see how they if he can kind of become as a consistent starter for them. On the Pats side, AVT, I hate it because you just know now he's a Patriot. He's going to be healthy every year. AVT is a great player when he's healthy, but the issue is he just has not been able to stay on the field for the past just forever, honestly. He's barely played a full season in his career. He always finds some way to get hurt, but I think what he is on, he can definitely kind of help solidify this past offensive line. And then Romeo Doubs kind of being that floor receiver. Obviously, you lost Stephon Diggs last week to some legal troubles. He can kind of come in and just be a reliable kind of at bare minimum, a reliable kind of 1B, wide receiver 2 for them. So I like what both these teams have done so far. I think there's some very interesting signings in this division. I think that a lot of potential in the Malik Willis signing for the Dolphins.
My opinion about Malik Willis, it's like drinking milk the day after it passes its expiration date. It's sometimes good and you can sometimes handle it, but other times it's too sour and you don't want it. So what does that come down to? Inconsistency.
All right, I actually have a breaking news from Tom Pelissero. The Patriots, who we're talking about right now, signed Kevin Byard to a 1-year, $9 million deal. It's another signing for them in the secondary.
Another Vrabel connection right there, Tennessee.
Yes.
Yeah, that's Vrabel bringing guys from Tennessee. But Malik Willis, I feel like that's a bit of an overpay, especially after, what was that, the Tua dead cap hit was the highest ever in the NFL.
Yes,
Just
it was.
burning money, take it, throw it in the furnace. Yeah, I don't really think the Dolphins will be contenders. Do I wish the Steelers drafted this guy over Kenny Pickett? Yes. I don't really think 6 games is large enough of a sample size to really give a guy that much money. And I don't like the Romeo Doubs signing either. Green Bay is a wide receiver committee. All those guys, honestly, are just twos. Is it an upgrade over Stephon Diggs? Maybe very slightly to not a lot or just right below. I don't feel like that really did much. That's not a pencil pusher move to me. But Romeo Doubs, he's not like a standout player. He's not a player that's going to make a defensive coordinator do much else. You got to have that one. New England doesn't have that. You can go further in the draft, but it's just a depth piece right there.
Yeah, I'll start with Miami first. It felt like they were going to make a couple of moves, but considering half their cap right now is dead cap hits, you can kind of only do so much. Malik Willis sign, I think it was nice. That Green Bay brass that transferred over to Miami really liked him, so that was almost felt like a guarantee at the start of free agency. And then the Josh Uche signing from Philadelphia to Miami, I thought was pretty good too, pretty good value deal. But for New England's side, Elijah Vera Tucker is a very great addition. That was probably one of my favorites from them. That 3 for 42, that potential, if he can stay healthy, like John mentioned, if he could be pretty good. He's a potential Pro Bowler for the New England Patriots, so we could see if that ends up happening. Draymond Jones also really good. You address both sides of the ball, which is why for New England I think it's a win. Did you pay a little bit too much for Romeo Doubs? Yes, but considering you had a good amount of cap space, and with these other receivers, you tried to go after Alec Pierce, not happening. Kind of had the transfer sides, got Romeo Doubs. I know there was some talk about A.J. Brown, but that's probably not going to happen. So you did what you could if you were New England.
And the last team in this division, I'll just let John take this one away. It's the New York Jets.
Yeah, Jets had a pretty busy day of free agency, bringing a lot on both sides of the ball in terms of defense. They added edge Joseph Asai from the Bengals, another edge Kingsley Enagbari from the Packers. In the morning, they traded for Minkah Fitzpatrick from the Dolphins for a 7th-round pick and gave him a new deal, kind of like a pseudo-signing in a sense, because they kind of just had to pay him again, only a 7th-round pick swap. And then on the offensive side of the ball, you bring in Geno Smith, former Jet quarterback, Mountaineer. Crazy that he's back. I did not think he'd ever be back with the Jets. I didn't think he'd want to come here, but he sounds pretty pumped up to do it. But, I forgot, DeMario Davis, probably the biggest signing of the day for the Jets. 37-year-old DeMario Davis back for his 3rd stint with the New York Jets, one of the better middle linebackers of his generation right here. And I think it's a general theme for the Jets. It's trying to get guys who kind of have experience in Glenn's system and be guys who are kind of proven leaders to kind of be those veteran presence to establish and help out a very young team right there. DeMario Davis is 37, obviously has some left in the tank. Maybe not the player he was a few years ago, but he's a guy teams have mentioned that they love his leadership for a while right now. I think Aaron Glenn, who has worked with him before, definitely knows that. So he can kind of be kind of that alpha dog in that linebacker room. And then Minkah Fitzpatrick can mentor a young secondary right there. And Geno Smith, you're getting a guy who obviously was very bad with the Raiders last year, didn't throw a bunch of picks, led the team to number 1 overall pick, just a disaster year. But a couple years ago, he threw for 3,300 yards, which the Jets haven't done since Joe Namath right there. So you're hoping you can kind of still be that floor raiser at quarterback for them. I think for the Jets, we're just trying to find some kind of competence right there. You want to get some NFL players in that defense. Last year it was a lot of undrafted free agents and late-round picks, guys who have no place in the league starting. You're getting some depth and experience there. And on the offense, you're getting a guy in Geno Smith you hope can kind of raise your floor, be a competent quarterback, and just help get your team to 7-8 wins there. And if you get to 7-8 wins this year, going from 3 wins last year, that's a pretty big step in the right direction for this regime that's kind of on the hot seat right now. So I like what they did. It's a lot of experience right there. So, and it's going to be interesting to see how they kind of add to this team with all their draft picks this year.
Geno Smith and floor raiser.
He's a floor raiser.
Floor raiser.
Oh my God, Brady Cook was our quarterback last year. Did you watch Brady Cook play football last year?
Yes,
Who
I
gave
did.
the Raiders the first round?
Awful.
It was hilarious.
It was beautiful. Well, for me it was.
For you it was beautiful, not for me. He was terrible.
So Breece Hall is probably the biggest outstanding guy on the Jets right now. Obviously, the franchise tag means that they're putting pressure on him to negotiate a contract extension with them, but I do like you guys signing Joseph Osai. I know a lot about him. He's a good pass rusher. Kind of mad that the Bengals didn't try and re-sign him, but I think probably one of the best moves that you've made this offseason, obviously outside of Minka, was getting Tavondre Sweat via trade. That was a very big step in the right direction for that Jets defensive line. Obviously getting rid of Quinnen Williams to the Cowboys, that is definitely a stopgap guy. He's young, he's got talent. But they're going in the right direction there in New York. I don't know if it's going to do anything positive, so to speak.
It can't be worse than last year. Surely it can't be.
It can.
It'll give that little boy Johnny another ice cream man.
If I have to watch Brady Cook play football again, I'm done watching football. He was that bad. Oh my God.
All right, I think we've had enough of teams that aren't that relevant to the NFL. Time to move on.
All right,
the Arizona Cardinals.
All right, time to move on to the best division in football, the AFC North. Or lack thereof. Obviously, we talked about the Max Crosby trade not going through, but the Ravens lost a lot of people in free agency, and probably the only notable signing, so to speak, would be Trey Hendrickson. Trey Hendrickson staying in division from the Cincinnati Bengals. I know if you listen to this podcast, you know that I am very outspoken about my not wanting to re-sign Trey Hendrickson just because of that cap hit, and I'm glad we didn't. But Trey Hendrickson signing a 4-year, $112 million deal with Baltimore, $60 million fully guaranteed, and a maximum value of $120 million. That's probably the one notable signing that they've had. What are your guys' thoughts on Hendrickson to the Ravens?
Well, it's a bit weird because a lot of people are saying, even like just reputable guys are saying that the only reason the trade from Crosby got next is because they realized, hey, we can get Hendrickson for cheaper than we thought, and then we can kind of keep our first-round picks. So maybe some chicanery right there. I'm not sure, but it was a rough offseason for them. They lost. Linderbaum's a huge loss. I'll talk about him later, getting a bag from the Raiders, and then one of their best blocking tight end is Charlie Kohler gone. But I definitely agree with how this. At the end of the day, you needed a guy who could rush the passer. I think Hendrickson can still do that at a high level. This team was bottom 5 in the league in sacks last year, so whatever kind of guy you can get, whether it's Crosby or Hendrickson, can help out a lot.
Yeah, this team, Baltimore's defense has kind of fallen out. I'm not going to say fallen out of relevancy, but a few years ago, they were a top 5 defense. Now they're like, they fell from that top 5 spot really, really hard, and it's not. They were nowhere near as good as they were these past a few years ago. So they need to up their defense in hopes that maybe Lamar might be able to win a few more playoff games or get another MVP and then lose in the playoffs. Oh, no. But you retain Mark Andrews, who's a superhero for Baltimore, as everybody knows. But it's a good signing, don't get me wrong. Trey Hendrickson staying in the division. He knows how the division works. Might be interesting going up against the Bengals. He might get his sacks up a little bit. Poor Joe, but
poor Joe.
Yeah, he probably has had some good work with the offensive lineman too on Cincinnati.
Yeah, I think for Baltimore, before I get on to Hendrickson, John Simpson going back there. I believe it was a Jet, John, right?
Yeah, most penalized left guard in the league last year. Fun fact.
Well, thank you, Baltimore, for signing
him.
Thank you, Baltimore, for signing him. But for Trey Hendrickson, I thought this was pretty interesting. I looked at it earlier. I believe Hendrickson himself told this to Schefter. He was like, I was under the impression signing with Baltimore that I'd be playing with Max Crosby. That was pretty funny enough. Imagine those two on the same line. But Hendrickson gets his payday. He stays in the division, which is interesting. He had a lot of suitors, though, but he ended up picking Baltimore. I think it'll be fun to see him twice a year.
All right, this is going to be the longest division that we talk about because 3 of us are fans of teams in this division that we have not talked about yet. We'll go through the other divisions a lot faster. We'll probably go through the biggest signings for the teams and then talk about the whole division as a whole. But here is where I get to shine. We made 2 signings, the Cincinnati Bengals, and it's 2 very needed signings. There was a lot of Ravens fans on Twitter saying, oh, they're comparing Boye Mafe to Max Crosby. Yeah, he's still a Raider, buddy, so choke on that. But Boye Mafe from the Seahawks signing with the Cincinnati Bengals. 3-year, $60 million deal. One of the more coveted edge rushers in this class. Obviously, he doesn't have the sack numbers that you would necessarily like, but he's young and he's talented and he gets a lot of pressures, and I think he was key to that Seattle Seahawks defense down the stretch. So a big signing there for the Bengals. And the other notable signing, former Chiefs safety Brian Cook, former Cincinnati Bearcat, former Cincinnati native, coming back home and playing with his boyhood team, the Cincinnati Bengals. He signed a 3-year, $40.25 million deal. $18 million in year one. I love this deal. They've needed a safety for so long. They need somebody to pair with Jordan Battle in the back. And this secondary is finally starting to shape up. You can see the Cincinnati Bengals signing maybe a linebacker, maybe holding out for Dre Greenlaw. But I think this draft will show a lot about the Cincinnati Bengals and what kind of direction they want to take with the rest of their future and these guys that they have under contract for the next 4 or 5 years. Now, on to the Cleveland Browns. I'll let RJ take this one away.
Yeah, honestly, for what Cleveland was projected to do in free agency, which most of the time is nothing, I'm not going to lie. This is usually pretty boring besides one pretty interesting trade a year. I think Cleveland did very well in their kind of goal of revamping the offensive line, signing offensive guard Zion Johnson from the Chargers. Yes, he did come from one of the worst O-lines in the league, and it looked pretty scary at first. But when you do your research, he's one of the best run-blocking guards in the National Football League. And for Cleveland's run-first identity that they've tried to maintain, I believe they'll try to do that under Monken. It's a great idea. Signing Elton Jenkins, too, he's most likely going to be the center for a pretty good value, $12 million a year, $20 million guaranteed for 2 years. But Quincy Williams, I know me and John was kind of bringing that up to me. Fast off-ball linebacker. He's really good. I'm so excited to see him in the orange and brown. And then signing today, Jack Stoll. He's a blocking tight end from New Orleans. Really going to help, like I said, with that run game. You have to have a block tight end, 12 personnel. That's probably what Cleveland's going to run a lot of this season. I'm though curious to see if Cleveland tries to sign a running back. I think that'll happen if they don't go for it in the draft. And there's a nice old friend from the Houston Texans last season that looked pretty nice in the back in Orange.
I think you got enough running backs.
I love the Quincy Williams signing for you guys. I really think he was not a fit for Glenn's scheme last year. He kind of lost a bit of a step because he didn't have C.J. Mosley there kind of taking care of more of the dirty work down there, and Quincy could run free. And also, I think he just kind of checked out when his brother Quinnen got traded mid-season. But I think he's a really strong bounce-back candidate for you guys because when he was on, he was an awesome player for the Jets for a few years.
That hit on Kyler, though. I keep seeing that on the timeline.
Love him so much.
To significantly improve the Browns, you guys should just cut Jerome Ford. Don't even trade him. Just cut him.
I would honestly love that. That's big dub.
All right. To the end of this division, the Pittsburgh Steelers, Don Brusco's favorite team, who has probably one of my favorite bargain signings of the year. I didn't know this contract was going to be this low. Rico Dowdle is on a 2-year, $12 million contract, $6 million a year, for a guy that had back-to-back 200-yard rushing games last year. Now, this is one of Dom's favorite players, if you don't know. We're big Carolina Panthers guys around here. He's coming in to replace Kenny G, who obviously left. So I need Dom's thoughts on this kind of wacky Pittsburgh Steelers offseason so far.
I'm really surprised the moves that we made. Usually we don't do this, but it's not Mike Tomlin's team anymore. Usually we do nothing or just have it's usually we sign a washed, veteran. How it goes, like Pat Pete, or we get
You did do that. You signed Darnell Savage.
Oh yeah, that's
there.
Right.
It
Who
is.
is the other?
There it is.
And who's the cornerback from Tampa Bay?
No, Dean, he's still good.
I really like that signing.
A 3-year, $36 million deal.
That was a good sign to pair him with JPJ. That was a good one. I like that for the secondary. Get up the secondary a little bit more. I like the way that that's working because Joey Porter Jr. had a really good season last year. I mean, yes, he plays very dirty, but he gets the job done. Should there be more flags on the way he plays? Yes. Does it happen? No. Am I complaining? No. Michael Pittman, in my opinion, I'll get to Rico Dowdle last. Michael Pittman, I believe, we overpaid that a little bit too much. For picks, I don't care for, the picks are fine. We have way too many picks. We need to get rid of some.
So his contract value, obviously, the picks, it was a late round pick swap for Michael Pittman.
It's the money I'm concerned about.
The money was, I believe, the driving factor of the trade because the Colts were trying to free up a lot of cap space. They were the main suitors for Trey Hendrickson, and they lost out on it. He was going to sign with the Colts if Baltimore didn't swoop in. But Michael Pittman's signing a 3-year, $59 million deal with Pittsburgh. It's going to be about $20 million a year.
I like that because we needed the two. And then that same day, I saw that Kenneth Gainwell. I'm like, oh, great. So we just lost our other running back. Now we have the problem we don't have two running backs. Well, no, they give you Rico Dowdle. But my question is, I appreciate the Rico Dowdle sign. Don't get me wrong. He's a beast of a running back. Is he an upgrade over Kenneth Gainwell or is he not? Because Kenneth Gainwell, I haven't seen enough tape of Rico, and I have seen a lot, but Kenneth Gainwell to me, he was that dual threat back. He was almost a receiver. He was a team MVP last year. And Bucks signed him for cheap. Rico Dowdle's good. Don't get me wrong. 200-plus yards. Like, those back-to-back games, he basically took Chubba Hubba's spot.
We talked about this in the car last night. I think Rico's probably going to end up being the main back. I think he's probably going to take over for Warren, and Warren's probably going to slide more into a Kenneth Gainwell role.
Warren can catch, good.
Warren is a good receiving back, but I like Dom's point about the fact that Kenneth Gainwell looked like a receiver. He was built more like a receiver. He was a lot more lethal in the pass game. So I think that you're going to see a bit of a shift, but I think Rico Dowdle's more along the lines of that Najee Harris bully back that you guys have been missing.
Yeah, like that, he's big enough to where if he just gets the football, he's just going to fall over and get like 3.
Put his head down and run through people.
Yeah.
You guys got him for cheaper, too.
Yeah, that's true.
Dom, you guys have addressed a lot of your team needs in this spot. That kind of frees up room for your first-round pick to address the quarterback position.
Or we should draft a death position as D-line or O-line because that would be stupid. This quarterback draft is overrated.
Schefter said they love Will Howard.
I
don't know.
There's a lot of talk. There's a free agent that still hasn't signed. It's Kyler Murray, but he's apparently, according to a close source to the Vikings, that he's leaning more towards the Vikings than the Steelers.
We've heard that for a while now.
You know why? I'm sure they're willing to give up a lot for him because O'Connell wants to save. No, I'm not going to say like his job's
This seat's
on the
getting
line,
a bit warm.
But I feel like McCarthy is going to be the downfall of that man.
And there is a rumor that the biggest suitor for Max Crosby, if he is to be traded, is the Chicago Bears. So could you imagine J.J. McCarthy going up against Max Crosby, Micah Parsons, and Aiden Hutchinson 6 times a year?
And that division's already like a nightmare.
That'd be hilarious. That is a gauntlet. But any more thoughts about the Steelers before we go on to the next division?
No.
Cole Holcomb, pretty good value. 2 for 5.
And Cam Hayward obviously getting a bag.
That guy
again.
gets injured
That's
every
a little
year.
bit of a problem in my opinion.
And I'm sure Cam Hayward getting the bag, I mean, he's old, whatever. He's just trying to collect a check for his brother before he gets cut.
It's the Wall of Honor tag.
We will get to that because the next team is what surged the edge market. Because Cam Hayward, I believe, got $32 million, and that is all because of the Houston Texans for signing Danielle Hunter to a 1-year, $40 million extension. I don't know why you would ever do this. I mean, we'll get to the rest of the division, but I want to single this one out. Why would you do this when you're trying to re-sign Will Anderson to a long-term extension? You are just screwing yourself over for the future. Because now Will Anderson is going to be like, oh, Danielle Hunter's worth $40 million in 1 year. I'm going to need like 50-something. And they are going to screw themselves in the cap because at some point they're going to have to re-sign a lot of those offensive pieces. They're going to have to re-sign, if he ends up coming back to be as good as he was, Tank Dell. They're going to have to re-sign Woody Marks in the future. They're going to have to potentially re-sign C.J. Stroud if he comes up and plays well. You don't know that.
You never know.
You don't know that. You're a Jets fan, dude. I wouldn't talk.
I'll take C.J. Stroud. Fine, don't have to resign.
That's what I thought. That's exactly what I thought. But the Texans had a bit of an interesting offseason. They re-signed Trent Brown, re-signed Dalton Schultz. They got Ed Ingram on that offensive line. There's a lot of different transactions on the Texans. A lot of offensive linemen, a lot of re-signs. They did get Reed Blankenship and assigned Kaimi Fairbairn to become the highest paid kicker in the NFL right now. But David Montgomery we talked about last week. A couple different moves within the division. There's 2 big ones for the Colts. And we're going to talk about that Daniel Jones contract because that's going to be interesting. Alec Pierce re-signed on a 4-year, $114 million extension. That is the largest free agent wide receiver contract of all time. Yes, Alec Pierce is the highest paid free agent wide receiver ever. I never thought I'd see the day. The Jags did nothing. They re-signed, I believe it's Buster Brown. I believe his nickname's Buster, Monteric Brown. It's actually what my mom used to call me when I was a kid. She used to call me Buster Brown. But 3-year, $33 million extension for Monteric Brown. And the Tennessee Titans. This is going to be a long one. So why don't we talk about the other teams before we get to the Titans?
I like that, yeah. Jaguars are probably the losers of day one of free agency thus far. I mean, if you have to declare someone a loser, obviously it's tough to declare that right now, but they lost a lot. Devin Lloyd, very big part of that defense last year, kind of just the heart and soul of that team. He's now in Carolina, which we're going to get to later. Travis Etienne was a huge part of that offense last year. He's now in New Orleans. He didn't really add anybody, so it's like, I mean, me and Connor had them as our Super Bowl pick if we did our way too early Super Bowl picks. I want to believe in them because I like Liam Cohen, I like Trevor Lawrence, but I like Travis Hunter, but like that's just a rough group of free agents to lose right there. But especially because a lot of these teams got better. I think the Colts kind of they're going all in on the Daniel Jones experiment because they kind of have to. I mean, he looked great when he played last year. Obviously, got hurt, but I mean, there's potential that could have been just a insane Linsanity run right there, and he could just do even more because they don't have other next 2 first-round picks. And then for the Texans, I mean, keeping Daniel Hunter around is very important. I think this might be his last year in Houston at that extension rate. I think they gave him that short-term, high AAV deal because they kind of figured the edge market was going to get there eventually for Will Anderson anyway. I think they give him that to keep him here now, so they haven't given him a long-term deal. Then eventually next year, probably when Anderson's due for his extension, you cut Daniil, let him walk, and give Anderson his bag so you kind of keep the band together at least for one more year. But I think the big one division we're going to get to in a second is the Titans because they had a monster offseason.
Yeah, my opinion about the Colts, I mean, Jaguars not that much. Was it them who let go of Johnny Munt?
Yes, it was.
I'm so disappointed in them. One of my favorite
I think he
players.
signed to Philadelphia. I believe he did.
I don't know if
I
I can
believe
like
Johnny
Johnny
Munt
Munt
did.
anymore. Philly's another contender for bad free agency. They lost quite a few players, but the Colts and I don't know if what's that, Connor?
I just saw
we
you
have
about
we have another breaking signing.
no.
Washington Commanders are signing tight end Chigokonkwo. I love that move. That's a big
good
move
move.
on the offense.
What?
Yeah.
Yep.
Chigokonkwo is a Washington Commander.
I feel like that's a loss to Tennessee. I don't really like that.
I like that
honestly.
we get to break news here. No, they have Gunnar Helm.
That's fun.
Oh wait, yeah, you're right.
He got
Gunnar Helm
3
has-
years.
I forgot
too.
about
Wow.
Gunnar
And I
Helm.
think Zach Ertz has gone from Washington, isn't he now?
Yeah,
Yes.
It was a sneaky big part of the offense in that
Yes, he
Jaden
was.
Daniels year.
Those tight ends are so important to the Commanders' offense.
Speaking of tight ends that are super important, I feel like Tyler Warren's going to get a lot more production now next year.
Oh,
As Alec Pierce, all I see him do is just run for deep balls, really, and the one Anthony Richardson,
So
Hail Mary.
the name that I'm hearing thrown around for Alec Pierce is White Kayshawn Booty, and it does make
That's
a lot
fair.
of sense.
What? Just throw it down, hope he's
It's
there.
just a go ball wide receiver,
like
which
MBS.
I don't think he's worth that money. I mean, I love Alec Pierce. I think he's a good wide receiver. He's a good route runner.
Didn't he turn down more?
He did turn down
From the
more.
Commanders.
Let's be honest. This Linsanity run that the Colts had, I'd probably say about 70% of it was due to Jonathan Taylor's Linsanity run and 3 touchdown games.
I think the Raiders are the winners of this offseason just because they didn't sign Alec Pierce.
I
Honestly.
thought Patriots when Titans were for him.
He's not.
Yeah.
all
I mean,
that.
people realize you have to get your young quarterback a good receiver, no matter
yeah.
at what cost.
But he's not all that.
Speaking of John,
Yeah,
that's
speaking of
a
young
great
quarterbacks.
segue to the Tennessee Titans. Getting your young quarterback a wide receiver. They did that, and I think this is probably the best bargain wide receiver that you got on it. Wan'Dale Robinson, who I thought was going to command a lot more money, signed a 4-year, $78 million deal with the Tennessee Titans that includes $38 million guaranteed. That's a steal, especially for a young quarterback in Cam Ward that needs that kind of wide receiver help. But there's a lot of guys to talk about here. They signed Jermaine Johnson, or they traded for Jermaine Johnson with that Tavondre Sweat trade. A lot of different former Giants going to the Titans. Obviously, Cordell Flott signing a 3-year, $45 million deal. Alante Taylor, who's a former Saint, signing a 3-year, $60 million deal. I wanted him on the Bengals, but we did not get him. They re-signed Joey Sly. They signed, I don't even know who that is. But I think the biggest move is they signed Mitchell Trubisky. No. But there's a lot of different moves that happened with the Titans. I thought they got more. I don't know why. I guess it was just the Raiders.
Yeah, I mean, they got a pretty bit, but I love their 2 defensive line additions in Jermaine. I mean, this is kind of like if you took the Jets and Giants and combined them. They have 2 guys from the 2022-2023 New York Jets that probably kind of had that great defensive line in Jermaine Johnson, who was acquired from the Jets for Tavondre Sweat, as we talked about earlier. And my favorite signing of the offseason, John Franklin Myers, who is an awesome player, was a big part of Denver last year. He was a big reason. Oh no, breaking news.
Another breaking news. The Baltimore Ravens are signing former Patriots safety Jalen Hawkins.
Oh,
That's a good move.
He was pretty good.
hey, more safety room from Milwaukee Starks. So, but back to that. I mean, when the Jets had those good defensive lines, they were anchored by Jermaine and John Franklin Myers. And when they got traded, JFM got traded going into 2024. Jermaine Johnson got hurt that first week in 2024. And that's kind of when they kind of took a spiral down and kind of lost that superpower they used to have. So I love those two signings right there. I mean, let's be clear. They're trying to Patriots this thing. They're trying to kind of bring in those veteran experienced free agents to kind of get them to contribute. And you look at New England and that jump. All those guys they signed last year contributed. Milton Williams contributed. Morgan Moses contributed to that team last year. I think the Titans are getting some really good stuff right here to make Cam Ward work, and they want to take advantage of this young quarterback on a rookie contract right here.
Yeah, for the Titans, I really like the Wan'Dale Robinson signing. I feel like you have Wan'Dale Robinson, you have other pieces like Alec Iomanner and DK. Yeah, however you say his first name, I'm not even gonna try. But you're starting to build a good wide receiving core. You did have Chigga Conklin, but now you have Gunnar Helm, so you're good there. Tennessee is starting to try to suit up. And this is becoming a more difficult division. Well, even though the Texans are weird right now, we'll get into them in a minute. But the Colts looked really good last season until they fell off a cliff, and the Jaguars made it to the playoffs and looked like a pretty good team against Buffalo. I mean, this year you gotta build a good team too for when you're building your new stadium.
Oh, absolutely, Dom. I mean, you got the ability and pieces to do it. I like that they also got John Franklin Myers for the Titans. I thought that was a really good sign. You got Wan'Dale for a good price. They wanted both Alontae Taylor and Cordell Flott. You got them both, so it was pretty good there. Also got Jordan Elliott. Tommy Townsend, pretty good punter as well. Got to get all aspects of the field in there. But for Houston, for Danielle Hunter's contract, and I was looking into it because what the contract says is always not how it appears on the cap sheet. It's about $16 million cap hit compared to a $40 million. That's a bigger number, but there's signing bonuses or ways you can get around that. So can a contract extension for Will Anderson still get done this offseason? Absolutely. So I'll have to wait and see if they do it. But getting Reed Blankenship for Houston was probably their main marquee signing. But if you're Indianapolis, you have to be proud of what you've been doing. Arden Key, I thought, was really good for them. Alec Pierce, a lot of money. Daniel Jones, a lot of money. But those are the two free agents you wanted to sign. You got them both signed, so it's ultimately a win for them. Then Jacksonville, they wanted to re-sign some guys from their own. They got re-signed. So, I mean, not really much of a loss, but you feel like you could do a little bit more from all they've lost.
All right, let's speed this up. AFC West time. This is going to be one of the longer ones. We're going to try and streamline this one. The Broncos didn't really do anything. They re-signed J.K. Dobbins to a $20 million deal over 2 years, and they re-signed Justin Stranad over 3-year deal. It's worth $19.5 million. Alex Singleton as well got re-signed 2 years, $15 million. The Kansas City Chiefs. This one was interesting because they lost a lot of people on defense, but they signed Alohi Gilman, and a lot of people are what they're calling one of the more underrated signings of this free agency window. Khyiris Tonga, a 3-year, $21 million deal. Travis Kelce's back for another year. Boo. And the biggest signing of their window was Kenneth Walker, signed a 3-year deal worth up to $45 million with the Kansas City Chiefs. That one sucks. The Raiders did a lot. This is going to be a long list, so strap in. They signed Jalen Naylor to a 3-year, $35 million deal. They signed Tyler Linderbaum, probably one of the best signings in the window, to a 3-year, $81 million deal, a large contract for him. They signed Kwity Paye to a $16 million deal. They signed Nakobe Dean to a 3-year, $36 million deal. They signed Quay Walker to a 3-year, $40.5 million deal. They traded for Teron Johnson with the Buffalo Bills. They got Eric Stokes for a 3-year, $30 million deal. And they signed Matt Gay on a free agent deal. Now to the Los Angeles Chargers in this division. They did a whole lot too. They brought in Tyler Biotish on a 3-year, $30 million deal. Also brought in Cole Strange on a $13 million deal over 2 years. Signed Charlie Kolar to a 3-year, $24 million deal, taking him away from the Ravens. Signing Alec Ingold to a 2-year, $7.5 million deal. They re-signed Tierre Tart to a 3-year extension over $37 million. Khalil Mack is back in this team. And that's about it. So what are your guys' thoughts on the AFC West?
Well, the Chiefs went back to being the evil empire. They got Kenneth Walker, which is it kind of made everybody kind of mad because no one likes the Chiefs. But, I mean, I like signing a lot for them. They really needed just kind of Pacheco and Hunt were just a disaster these past 2 years. Couldn't run the ball at all. People are saying if you combine them together, you still wouldn't have a top 20 running back, which is crazy. But K-Walk, off Super Bowl appearance, still has some pretty fresh legs because he split carries last year, so he might not really have the workload issues you've seen some other running backs get plagued by. And I think also a lot of people are kind of saying, like, hey, they're a bit confused because the Chiefs lost a lot of guys in the secondary. We're about to go into a loaded draft. for secondary players. I mean, there's a lot of great safeties throughout the early rounds. They were in good position to get a cornerback at that 9 pick. They're probably going to have to pick the litter right there with how the board may fall. And I think they're going to kind of try to do it a couple years ago, trying to kind of reset this roster and get it ready to kind of get back to being the Chiefs of old. But Chargers, I like to be out of shining. Bradley Bozeman was awful last year. He'll be a pretty big upgrade right there. And then, other than that, man, Linderbaum and the Raiders had a great offseason. They're kind of trying to help kind of similar to the Titans, kind of build around their young quarterback. They paid him a lot of money. When you have the third most cap space in the league, you have to use it somewhere. So I love them getting a center right there. It's going to be interesting to see how this Max Crosby trade progresses. If they still trade him, if they want to keep him, it's definitely kind of to see both options. I personally think he will get traded, even if not for as much as it was with the Ravens, but I think he's probably gone from there.
Well, the Raiders are certainly suiting up for something. They're trying to make the team, suitable for their quarterback that they're getting ready to draft, which we all know who that will be, unless somehow a team like the Jets could maybe – I don't even think they'd accept that call unless it'd be something like out of proportion. But Raiders had a lot of signings. I feel like the Jalen Naylor signing is a little bit underrated. He was a good receiver for Minnesota, specifically when Jordan Addison was out for those few weeks. I think because of some legal trouble, something like that along those lines. But Jalen Naylor, he's a good receiver. I mean, he's definitely going to be a transition piece that will help. I'm going to say Fernando Mendoza because I'm going to assume that's the truth on that offense, along with Max Crosby, along with Ashton Genty. You're starting to add those pieces together. Will he make up for Jacoby Myers going to the Jaguars? No, but he'll be there to help the next coming quarterback to get comfortable with Brock Bowers is going to be the contributing factor to that. But you sign all of these guys. I hope that you typically you don't see a team just completely flip their roster. I mean, this almost seems like the WVU men's basketball team, the way that they just did this. But hopefully all these players work well together, and it's not like I think it was last year where it was Wilkins in that whole locker room situation. I have no idea what went on with that, but that was a weird time. The Chargers made some good decisions as well. Broncos, like Connor mentioned, didn't really do much. But the Chiefs signing K-Walk, I feel like people are starting to hit the panic button with that. You got to realize that Mahomes is not going to play for a good majority of the season. And this division is getting very competitive. So I don't even know who they're – I think me and John were talking about this the other day. I don't even know who their starting quarterback is now because Minshew's not even there. I don't even know who it is.
I think Mahomes is going to be ready, I think.
I don't think he'll be ready. He'll be out for the first few weeks, John. It'll be their backup who will be
It might be a couple weeks, but it's not going to be too long into the year.
A couple weeks that could affect the division a little bit.
True, absolutely.
It's not as free and as easy as it used to be.
Oh, yeah. That division's fun. How about say, you got any more points, Tom?
No, I'm good.
I'll go a little bit quicker. The Chiefs, K-Walk. You got a Super Bowl MVP to fix your running back problem, so we know where Jeremiah Love is not going. Travis Kelce coming back for another year, and Tyquan Thornton as well, getting two guys that are used to your system. Also, Louis Gilman, I think, was a pretty good signing there for the Chiefs. The Raiders, goodness Lord, so many acquisitions. But you have to think there were so many holes in this Raiders team. They had one of the highest caps in the NFL for a reason. They want to spend that money. I think they did a great job. Jalen Naylor, one of those sneaky signings. You also got Matt Gay for kicker. And then the two linebackers, Nakobe Dean, Quay Walker, is going to be a fun time. And then obviously the big one, Tyler Linderbaum. Obviously a great extension. You want to get a great center to help your young quarterback if that's where they go. But for the Chargers, I think getting Charlie Kolar was a pretty good signing at tight end. Cole Strange and Alec Ingold, the Mike McDaniel connection there showing. And then you're also retaining a lot of your own. Khalil Mack also as well. Tierra Tart, just to name a couple of those guys who got re-extended. Also Trevor Penning. I think, though, but for the Denver Broncos, you got back, it was J.K. Dobbins. I did not expect him to go back 2 years, $20 million, $8 million guaranteed. So you got some guaranteed money, even though he's had some injury history. I mean, you're also re-signing as well Alex Singleton, and then you even got Sam Ehlinger back, which I guess a lot of guys within the Denver building really like. So for them, that was key to get. But for Denver, you're just doing retaining. But other than that, I think this AFC West did a pretty good job.
Yeah, a whole lot going on in this division outside of the Denver Broncos. But let's go to the NFC East. We're finally in the NFC. Let's take a little bit to go over them. The Cowboys are the first team on here. They re-signed Javonte Williams. They franchise tagged George Pickens. There's only a couple guys that they brought in off free agent deals. They traded for Rashawn Gary from the Green Bay Packers. I sent a 4th-round pick for that one. And one of the only really notable free agent signings that they had was Jalen Thompson, former Cardinals safety, signing a 3-year deal worth $36 million. I think the other one that's really notable would be Brandon Aubrey. Interesting thing that happens. You don't really see the 2nd-round tender applied to a lot of people, but he received a 2nd-round $5.76 million restricted free agent tender, which means that other teams can sign him to an offer sheet, but Dallas would have the right to match it. And if he signs with another team, the Dallas Cowboys would be awarded a 2nd-round pick. So, it's for the Cowboys. The Giants probably had the most active free agency outside of the Commanders in this division. Patrick Ricard, Isaiah Likely, Tremaine Edmonds, and Greg Newsome being the notable guys going there. A lot of former Ravens going to play with John Harbaugh. The Eagles didn't really do anything. There's one that Dom's not going to like, the Johnny Munt signing for the Philadelphia Eagles. But they did re-sign Jordan Davis on a 3-year, $78 million contract. And the only real free agent signing that they had this year was Tariq Woolen, which is probably a pretty major one. A 1-year deal worth $15 million. And on to the Commanders. Oh, wow. They actually did just sign somebody as well. Nick Cross.
Good. It was a good deal. I believe, $7 million a year?
Believe so. It's not updated on this site.
2 years, I think, something like that.
But we did see that on Twitter. They did re-sign a lot of people.
14.
But a lot of different guys coming in from free agency. Kayvon Chason being one of them. 1-year, $12 million deal. Odafe Owe being one of the largest signings during this window. 4-year, $100 million deal for one of the guys who leads the NFL in pressures. Tim Settle signing a 3-year, $24 million deal. Leo Chenal signing a 3-year, $24 million deal. You noticing a trend here? And they re-signed Tress Way. So what are your guys' thoughts on the NFC East?
Yeah, I was going to talk about the Commanders, how much I like them. I think I'm going to like you even more now. They've had a lot of good defensive signings right there. I love Nick Cross, the player. He's a true playmaker coming from the Indianapolis Colts. Leo Chenal's been on a couple of Chiefs championship teams. He's going to be a big player right there. Odafe Owe was great down the stretch for the Chargers. And obviously, Kayvon Chason, sneaky, really good season last year for the Patriots. A big part of that Super Bowl run they had right there. I just like him a lot. I mean, they're going to probably get a chance to add to that or the offensive line with their high pick they have. And with the help of Jaden Daniels, I mean, they could be right back in the NFC mix next year. I think for the Giants, I think Isaiah Likely is a big breakout candidate. I think just in general next year, I mean, he always kind of felt like he was held back a bit by Mark Andrews in Baltimore and that multiple tight end system right there. And the Giants, I think they'll let him run free. I'm not really sure if Theo Johnson's going to be kind of stealing those targets from him. I think it's going to be allowed to run free under Harbaugh next year. But the Eagles probably had a rough free agency. They kind of lost a bunch of guys, but they're still a very talented team right there. Overall, I think it's a pretty standard division right here. A couple good signings, a couple bad ones. I'd say Commanders and Giants are pretty big winners right now.
I mean, I'd have to disagree. John, I feel like the Eagles are the biggest winner. I mean, Johnny Munt, dude, he will absolutely – that just confirms that Dallas Goedert is gone. They're not going to end up paying Dallas Goedert because Johnny Munt's there, clearly. I mean, this is almost like last year when they got Tank Bigsby. Johnny Munt, just such a guy. So good. I remember we always talk good about – I remember we did I think it was last year's draft recap of – I forget which draft he won in, but Odafe Owe, he's a player that's improved over the years. Like, his stats get significantly better over the years.
We are.
That too, but a good player. I mean, underrated. He doesn't get talked about a lot, but he's definitely a contributor, and he's a great pickup for the Giants. I like Isaiah Likely. I feel like it's a good pickup, good addition for Jackson Dart. I mean, yeah, David Johnson there, but just another weapon that you can give him along with Cam Scatterbo and Malik Neighbors. And who's their other? Oh, it was Wan'Dale Robinson. Don't they have another receiver now, or do they not?
Darius Slayton.
They have not added anybody else besides the guys they had.
I like those additions. Giants don't really need to fix much. I mean, got a good coach, and they did what they had to last year. They just need to fix that secondary, which they attempted to. And they could draft more, so.
Yeah. I think for Dallas, so I'll go quicker. Dallas, you kind of went more on a re-signing spree. George Pickens franchise tag. Gary in the trade was pretty good. Also good Jalen Thompson, P.J. Locke for the safety duo. For New York, you wanted some familiarity with Baltimore and getting John Harbaugh. You got Isaiah Likely and friends to do it. Tremaine Edmonds is also really good for that. Patrick Ricard as well, getting a lot of money at the fullback position, but he is really good. Getting Greg Newsome's interesting depending on how they run their defense. If it's man, you're okay. If it's zone, you might have a problem. Philly, you kind of let some guys walk, but you got Jordan Davis re-signed. I know a big thing for them and getting Tariq Woolen. If anybody can fix him, it'd probably be Philadelphia. And Dom went all about Johnny Munt, so there's not more I got to ask. You also got Grant Calcaterra back as well. For the Commanders, though, they did a lot. Marcus Mariota was one of the bigger backup quarterbacks on the market, got him down. Just got Chigakonkwo, 3 years, $30 million. You re-signed Laramie Tunsil. I mean, a lot of O-line pieces that you signed, and also Andrew Wiley as well re-signed. But you also got Kalavion Chasen. You also got Odafe Owe, which that's a pretty good long-term commitment. See what he can do. I'm curious to see what he'll do in the Washington defensive system under Dan Quinn, but also re-sign Tress Way. So pretty good for the whole division, really.
All right, NFC North talk. Now we're going to the Chicago Bears. We're going to try and go pretty fast through these ones. The big ones for the Bears would be Devin Bush signing a 3-year, $30 million deal, and Kobe Bryant. Yeah, the safety Kobe Bryant, not the one who just got his record broken by Bam Adebayo. Kobe Bryant signing a 3-year, $40 million deal coming from the Seahawks. That's a pretty big signing for the Bears. A lot of different trades in here. Garrett Bradbury being the one trade that's really notable for the Bears, sending a 5th-round pick to the Patriots for a new center, obviously because their center retired. I believe that was Drew Dahlman. But the Detroit Lions didn't do too much in this one. Obviously, the main one would be them signing Isaiah Pacheco to be the next running back, the second running back behind. Why is his name not coming to my mind? Jahmyr Gibbs, yeah. I couldn't think of it for a minute. 1 year, $1 million deal, basically $2 million deal. Not a whole lot other than that. They did trade for Juice Scruggs from the Texans and signed Rock Ya-Sin to a 1-year, $4 million deal, kind of keeping it put there. But the Green Bay Packers traded for Zaire Franklin from the Indianapolis Colts, and they signed Benjamin St-Juste, which if Gabe Schoen was still on this podcast, he'd have choice words to say about this guy. But the Minnesota Vikings didn't do a whole lot either. This whole division didn't do a whole lot. We can go through this one pretty fast. Eric Wilson being the notable.
I mean, these teams have already kind of made their moves in recent years with Green Bay. Obviously, Mike, the Lions have been very active in recent years. Same with the Bears last year. I will say, probably a high for this division. I like the Bears' 2 defensive additions in Kobe Bryant and Devin Bush. Both had great years last year. The Bears relied a lot on turnovers last year in their defense, but you really can't do it as a sustainable strategy right there. So getting these talented guys who have experience can kind of help that out a bit more.
I honestly thought Pacheco would be paid more.
He hasn't really gotten a whole lot of game time.
It's kind of the Chiefs running back effect, like Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I mean, Chiefs had a few good running backs, but I don't really think Pacheco was worth signing, honestly. I don't really think he's that good. Just watching his workout videos, it just looked too funny to me.
It is pretty funny.
Chicago re-signed Case Keenum. I think it was pretty good for Caleb's mentorship. Got Kobe Bryant, stole Devin Bush from my Cleveland Browns. Pretty good signings. They also got Garrett Bradbury in a trade, so Chicago did pretty well from their limited moves. Lions got back Teddy Bridgewater. That was pretty cool. Got Pacheco. Also getting Rock Ya-Sin as well back. I just thought that was pretty good. So Detroit limited moves, but decent moves. Green Bay didn't do too much. I thought that Zaire Franklin trade was pretty good. And for Minnesota, you got Aaron Jones back. They really like him as a locker room presence. And then also Eric Wilson re-signing.
All right. To the NFC South, where I'm sure Dom and I will have a lot to say about the Panthers offseason. Let's start at the bottom. Let's start with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who made 3 total signings, but 3 very good signings. Kenneth Gainwell to a 2-year, $14 million deal.
Boo.
Cade Otton re-signing to a 3-year, $30 million deal. And Alex Anzalone signing to a 2-year, $17 million deal. That's 3 very good moves. I think they had a clear strategy going into free agency. To the New Orleans Saints, they took Noah Fant off our hands. Thank you, Lord. Travis Etienne being the main signing here. 4-year, $52 million deal, sending him home, back down to the Bayou. Julian Blackmon re-signed on a 1-year deal. And that is really about it, other than Caden Ellis signing with them, a 3-year, $33 million deal. Not a whole lot else to report there. The Carolina Panthers, though, this is a fun one because they signed Kenny Pickett. I'm just kidding. They had two really big signings in free agency. Jalen Phillips signing a 4-year, $120 million deal. That's a maximum deal, by the way. Trey Hendrickson got the exact same deal, 4 years, $120 million. But Devin Lloyd, who they were battling it out with the Bengals for, signing with the Panthers on a 3-year, $45 million deal off of a breakout season. Other than that, a couple different signings on them. I think they re-signed Isaiah Simmons, who they might try and do something different with on defense. But the interesting one, the Atlanta Falcons. They picked up Tua on a 1-year vet minimum because the Dolphins are still covering his salary. They have dead cap. They were able to sign him for the veteran minimum. So they've got two handicapped left-handed quarterbacks.
That's pretty good. I think that's the first time. The last one was the 2000 Seahawks with two names I can't remember right now off the top of my head.
Yes, but there are a couple other different signings. They franchise tag Kyle Pitts. I think they're going to try and get a long-term extension done with him after a breakout season.
That poor guy.
And Jahan Dotson getting a 2-year, $15 million deal. Might see an extensive role in this Falcons offense behind Drake London because they cut Darnell Mooney.
Yeah, I guess the base sort of division is the Panthers. They really have playmakers on all levels of defense now, bringing in another edge player with Nick Scorton and Jalen Phillips, who was productive last year. And I love Devin Lloyd signing. He was such a big part of that Jacksonville defense right there. With J.C. Horn on the back end and some young guys in that defensive line in addition to Phillips, that's going to be a fun defense next year. And I'm starting to see kind of the makings of a contender right here after a great kind of positive momentum season last year.
I mean, for the Panthers, they did a tremendous job in the offseason. I mean, their main problem was the D-line, so they fixed the problem on D-line. Now in the draft, you can go offensive line because that's your clear number one need right now. You need to protect Bryce Young. You need to give him more time in the pocket to be able to throw. And, I mean, the Panthers, they had J.C. Horn, and Mike Jackson was a really good cornerback too. I mean, against the Rams, if you watch that film, he gave Puka and any receiver that went up against him like a problem. Like, he was running with Puka for half the game, and he did really good. He really kept the game close. But that was one of the Panthers' immediate needs that they need to fix. They got two good guys, all-stars, if you will, with Jalen Phillips with that much money. I mean, it's good to see that players actually want to go to this team now. 2 to 3 years ago, they would not have wanted to go to this team. For Atlanta, okay, whatever. Jahan Dotson, Olamide Zaccheaus, yes, this is all random flex players that you might pick up in case someone gets injured on your fantasy football roster. Bucs, they did good. We'll talk about a guy who left the Bucs, and once we get to another division in a second.
Yes.
But upset that we got rid of Kenneth Gainwell, but we gained Rico Dowdle. He'll fit well here, specifically because he's a good receiving back, basically a receiver like we talked about. Cade Otton re-signing is really good. This year he didn't do that well, but the year before he was really good. RJ knows because he had him on fantasy football the year before. I feel like, no, the Panthers are the clear winner of this. Travis Etienne, too, to the Saints. It's going to be nice. It'll help, what's his name, Shuck, get more comfortable.
Shuck. Yeah. For Tampa Bay, they didn't do too much. They lost Mike Evans. We'll get into that in a minute. But you got Alex. I'm not even going to try and guess because I know I'm going to get it wrong. Yeah, no.
Anzalone?
Because trust me, there's another similar name that I didn't want to say out loud. But they got him for a 2-year, $17 million deal. I thought that was good. Cade Otton re-signing and also getting Kenny G. For the Saints, getting Etienne and Noah Fant, I thought that was pretty good as well. Also, Caden Ellis, I think, was a pretty good deal for linebacker. I was wishing Cleveland looked at him as well, but they went another direction. You even got Ryan Wright as a punter deal. A lot of punters going around. For the Panthers, you got David Moore re-signing. You also got Jalen Phillips, big money deal. Devin Lloyd, great signing. You re-signed Isaiah Simmons. Forgot he was even on the Panthers. But you got Kenny Pickett, which is cool too. But for the Falcons and Kevin Stefanski, having Tua was I'm just glad Kevin's in Atlanta because I only could imagine what he would have done if he was in Cleveland here. Got Austin Hooper, which is one of his first signings when he first got to Cleveland. Also got Kyle Pitts on the franchise tag. And also Nick Folk, John.
Great last year.
Yeah.
Awesome last year. Sad we're not going to have a third 2013 Jet on the roster right now. He is still kicking it right now. Aaron Glenn's teammate, by the way. Fun fact.
All right. Let's go to the final division. Thank the Lord. The NFC West. So we are going down to talk about the Arizona Cardinals right now, who didn't do a whole lot. They signed Tyler Algier to a 2-year, $12 million deal. That's going to be a good signing for them. Kendrick Bourne, Isaac Seumalo, probably the most notable signing for them. 3 years, $31.5 million. They signed a punter and a kicker, so that just about tells you how their offseason is going. And they signed Gardner Minshew to compete for that starting spot. That's going to be a fun quarterback battle, I think, between Gardner Minshew and Jacoby Brissett.
Battle of the journeymen.
Yeah, battle of the journeyman quarterbacks. So that's going to be something to watch. This one was big. The Los Angeles Rams, who are currently going to be the Super Bowl favorites to enter the year, traded for Trent McDuffie. We talked about that last week. Jalen Watson signing a 3-year, $51 million deal with them, and they were able to re-sign somebody that John wanted so bad for the New York Jets, Cam Curl, to a 3-year, $36 million deal. But the San Francisco 49ers, outside of the one big deal, didn't do a whole lot, but they were able to sign a future Hall of Fame wide receiver, Mike Evans, to a 3-year, I believe it says $42.5 million deal. It's at least what I'm seeing. They weren't able to list it on the website. But Mike Evans is now a Niner. He is now no longer donning the Buccaneers kit for the first time in his NFL career, and he's going to have to wear a number outside of 13 for the first time in his football career. He wore it at A&M, and he wore it in Tampa. So this is going to be an interesting story down in San Fran, which is definitely known for giving away some injuries. But now to the last team, the former Super Bowl champion Seattle Seahawks, the reigning Super Bowl champions. They lost a lot of people on defense, but they were able to keep Rashid Shaheed on offense, 3 years, $51 million. And they were able to get Josh Jobe back in their secondary. He was a pretty big piece for them in the secondary. 3-year, $24 million deal. What are your guys' thoughts?
Yeah, the Rams, you mentioned it, Connor. I feel like they're going to be Super Bowl favorites coming into the season. They had a clear weakness in the secondary, and they really addressed it, bringing Cam Curl back. Also keeping Quentin Lake, which happened in the season, but keeping him around is pretty good for the team. And then getting two guys from the Chiefs in Jalen Watson and Trent McDuffie, who can be kind of day one starters back there. Great offseason for them right there. And I think also Mike Evans. Yeah, I think I like signing a lot for the Niners. They really just kind of need that veteran presence back there. They've had a really kind of a litany of injuries to that room in recent years. George Kittle obviously got hurt late last year in the playoffs, but Mike Evans can kind of be a stabilizing force back there. And as mentioned, it's going to look weird seeing him not in 13 or Buccaneers colors, but I think he can still be a contributor for this team and kind of help try to get that second ring he's been seeking for a while now.
Yeah, I don't know why San Fran would sign Mike Evans. I'm not really a fan of this signing, to be honest with you. I think it's kind of ironic. You sign the most injured-prone receiver, or one of the most injured-prone receiver who gets injured every year. Not to discredit him, he gets almost 1,000. I don't think he had 1,000 yards this year, but before this year, he had 1,000 yards every season.
11 straight.
Yeah, 11 straight. Beat some, I forget which record he tied or beat.
Jerry Rice.
Yeah, Jerry Rice's record. But, it just seems like that mixing with the team that is notoriously known as a hospital just doesn't seem like it'll end well with me. I honestly think Mike Evans might step on a landmine week one. It just doesn't seem like a good fit to me. I don't like the signing because just for that reason. I just think it's funny. For the Rams, we talked about Trent McDuffie and depth, but you fixed some problems there on the defense. Offense didn't really need that much tweaking, to be honest with you. You just really wanted to make sure that the defense could actually stop an offense. That seems to have been a problem for the past few years, specifically in the NFC Championship for this team. But no, the Rams are a clear powerhouse. For Arizona, whoever's the starting quarterback, I hope it's Jacoby Brissett. Honestly, he deserves it. He played so much better than Kyler last year. Minshew's probably just there as a good backup in case Jacoby gets hurt. But I think the Algier sign is really good. I want to see him have a chance of actually being a 1. I think he has the potential, unlike another running back in this division that I kind of despise. I actually hate this running back. But Algier was a good tandem back and actually put in the work when he was asked. He didn't just get to the 1-yard line and then just get pushed in like Zach Charbonnet did. Sorry, buddy, but you suck. Algier's good. He'll complement James Conner well. They'll be a good tandem.
For Arizona, you kind of mentioned Algier a lot. Kendrick Bourne there as well, I thought was pretty interesting. Also got that former Steelers offensive guard, Isaac Seumalo. Thought that was pretty interesting as well, going to Arizona. Now to the Rams. You got Tyler Higbee back. I thought that was pretty good. We talked about the McDuffie trade. Jalen Watson, it's almost like that secondary is the Kansas City Rams. And then also getting Cam Curl re-signed. That was arguably one of their biggest wins as well. San Francisco, you got Mike Evans. You also got for Seattle, Rashid Shaheed. I didn't think he'd be going back to Seattle, but he turns out to be going back. Also got Josh Jones back, and Josh Jobe on a 3-year, $24 million deal re-signed. So not bad for the defending Super Bowl champs.
All right, a little longer than usual for us today, but we kept it around an hour. Surprised. We actually did a pretty good job at keeping this one down in time. But before we go off, I need Dom's thoughts on a story that I saw.
Is it about Javon Hargrave?
No, Javon Hargrave did get cut. But there is a Steelers thing that I've seen being floated around that a potential backup option for the Pittsburgh Steelers is Kirk Cousins. How would you feel about that, buddy?
As a starter or as a backup?
As a starter.
No.
As a potential backup in case the Kyler Murray deal falls through.
How much would why would we do that? Why don't you
I
just get
believe he's
Rodgers?
off his Falcons contract, so it wouldn't be a vet minimum. So it'd probably be around $20 million.
Okay, so you did really good with what you did with Pittman and Dowdle, and the team's really built right now. It's ready for a quarterback.
Ty Simpson!
Not Kirk Cousins. Not Ty
Cousins.
Simpson. I'd rather have Will Howard start.
So just young
Today.
Kirk Cousins.
Huh?
So just young Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, that's fine.
Ty
I don't
Simpson.
want Kirk Cousins. You like that? No, I don't. No, I do not at all. Get rid of him.
All right, that's going to do it for us here at Stirring the Pot. This week, we'll be back at you next week with another great episode and some great Dom takes and some great takes from everybody here. Have a great rest of your week. See ya.